Hey everyone, this is Louis7, and today I want to talk about the new legendary item system coming soon to the Lord of the Rings Online. One thing I feel like that hasn't been talked about enough throughout the community, including from myself, is the big picture of the new system. So that is what I plan on focusing on today, but there are a lot of little things, little details that players have been focused on, and sometimes it seems hyper focused on, which a lot of it I agree needs to be addressed, but a lot of that is also the type of stuff that can be iterated on to continually make improvements up to and after launch with the new system. And in fact, Standing Stone Games has stated that that is their plan. So the revamp is launching to give us a fix of the old system as early as possible, with it still being in a releasable and fairly finished feeling state. And they also said that there will be a lot more work done after the initial implementation that we do get. Also, on the note of news that I have, I did want to share that the release date for all this stuff is October 13th for Update 30.3, which will include the LI revamp as well as the brawler if you did pre-purchase Gundabad. Also to point out, I was originally planning to have a follow-up video to this one going into more details on the beta in general with the last round, but there isn't too much for me to really cover, I feel like, but we'll see if I get to that. Anyway, for this video, instead of that little details type of stuff, let's go ahead and go over the big picture of the new system and the core differences compared to the old system in this video. I do have one quick note on the background for this video, and it will be a mix of probably a lot of the stuff from beta round 1, which will look a little bit outdated, and then just other gameplay I have, because not too much of what I'm talking about will be relevant to actually what you are doing in game. So I did want to point that out. So first of all, the progression looks to be vastly smoother than all previous LI systems. The core progression is based on the legendary item level, and that is based on reforging your LI at a Forge Master every few levels. There is of course some more maintenance to it than that, and this is going to be a modular type system where you slot items called Traceries into your LI. Traceries function much like essences that we have for armor right now, and they do have a variety of level ranges, and they will need to be replaced as you level up as well. Now, these traceries are a little bit more complex because they can be upgraded via enhancement runes to increase their item level, which will only boost the stats of the tracery. That contrasts the rarity, which boosts the main affix on most traceries. In the main affix, that will depend on what type of tracery it is. Roll traceries have effects that work with your rolls, such as AoE damage, single target damage, damage over time, AoE targets, or the healing side of things for all that stuff, the counterparts for that. And also some do have defensive boosts if you're into that sort of thing. For class traceries, those have effects specific to your class and sometimes spec, like boosting the damage or healing of a single ability or ability type that your class has. Some also do provide more utility boosts or cooldown reductions and duration extensions for certain things. Moving on, we do have stat tracers as well, which just simply boost stats, but these can give set bonuses for having the same set of stat traceries equipped. And finally, there's also a single heraldic tracery per LI, which gives you a primary and pretty giant stat boost. Anyway, that is the new LI system in a nutshell, which is significantly easier and quicker to explain than the old system, even if it did seem, even to me, get a little bit confusing at the end there. Anyway, that in addition to the progression seeming much simpler and smoother, I think that is just a big positive of the new system. While there are some naming schemes for the types of tracers, and I think they can convolute things as they are technically called, Word of Power, Word of Craft, Word of Mastery traceries, I think that just overcomplicates things. But if you set that aside, the actual names that they use in the game with those word ofs, and just randomly the heraldic, if you set that aside, the system is overall fairly simple, especially compared to the old LI system where we had pre-imbued and post-imbued LIs. We had class legacies, which changed what they were before and after imbuement. We had generic but very weak stat legacies. We had relics, we had titles, and then there were a lot of inconsistencies on these parts of the old system and how you actually upgraded them. And speaking of upgrading things, let's actually cover how you do that in the new system. Well, at the baseline level, we already covered a simple reforge every few level ups, or for level cap characters every new major content update. That is the first step in baseline level, and the Reforge does cost gold to point out. But to get the Traceries, the bigger part of the system, there are two main ways to get them, and the first appears to be just running content of the game. This is not all 100% confirmed yet on exact details. We'll have to see when this update actually comes out, and probably especially with Gundabad, but you could probably expect some quests, things like instance chests, raids, and all that sort of stuff will drop actual Traceries. On top of that, crafting seems likely at this point that you can craft Traceries, or at least craft the currency that you can use to barter for Traceries, which, speaking of barter, that is actually going to be the second way you can get Traceries, it seems. And this is looking like it will be probably the primary method, but yes, we are getting a new barter currency called Ancient Scripts and a new set of Tracery bartering currency. I know that's not really helpful with the name of it being Tracery currency, even though we have Traceries as the actual items, but anyway. Ancient scripts, those do appear to be universal throughout the entire new system, while the Tracery barter currency are for specific content eras slash like level caps slash expansions, that type of stuff. And then as implemented in the beta, which of course is subject to change even though we're only like a week till the actual release of this, the bartering functions are quite simple. Many low quality traceries can be straight up bartered for ancient scripts. Teal and gold traceries, however, those are the two highest rarities. They require the special tracery barter currency. And then enhancement runes, those can also be bartered straight up for ancient scripts and probably will be acquired similarly through like drops, chests, that type of stuff. Anyway, for upgrading to new traceries, in the beta, traceries have both a minimum level requirement and a max level. If your character level is higher than the max level, you will be unable to slot those traceries, and if you have traceries lower than your level already slotted, they will actually be automatically unslotted. The level range for traceries appears to be 2 expansion eras worth, or 2 level cap increases worth of levels. So this means, for example, for level 121 to 140, Minas Morgul traceries can still be used in Gundabad. There is an exception for levels 50 to 95, which the entire range actually has 1 tracery set. It's a little bit of an oddball there. And this upgrading scheme for especially the traceries here, compared to the old system, you would have to either just replace your LI itself every few levels and level it up. You would also have to get new legacies for it, slot new relics in it, get new titles for it, and all that sort of stuff. And that is how the old system worked compared to this new one. And that is just the general big picture of how this new LI system works. So as you level up, you'll need to occasionally reforge the LI and get new higher level traceries. In the meantime, you can work on getting higher quality traceries and upgrading them via enhancement runes. At the level cap, your high priority looks like it will most often be getting higher quality traceries, and after you get the highest quality tracery, upgrading the item level with enhancement runes. So that's the very short version, and my overall opinion on that big picture is pretty positive. Most of my issues with the new system are actually in the details, and mostly at least with specific traceries. That's probably the biggest part. But again, with the big picture, there are some big issues, I think, within the big picture, and some of them are very concerning to me at this point. I was talking about it in my stream just last night. But one thing that I don't think helps with some of the initial confusion is the naming schemes for the traceries. Word of Craft, Word of Power, Word of Mastery, and then we have just the odd one, Heraldric. This naming scheme, I don't think helps the system, and as I've said many times, it makes the system seem more convoluted than it necessarily actually is. So I personally would like to see a more simplified and consistent naming scheme with just using traceries. But moving on, another big picture thing that I am not liking kinda at all is the user interface. After a few rounds of beta, we have only seen minor UI changes at best, and I think it needs a big overhaul and a complete ground up redo. Currently, it's basically the Essences UI, but unlike Essences, we have like 12 tracery slots, with all 12 looking to be used in Gundabad. This creates a long vertical mess that not only can be hard to read, but also some of the information on the traceries is like cut off in that little tiny panel. And even playing at 1440p with my monitor, the max size of the UI panel for the traceries is not actually even large enough to see all the traceries at once, which I think can make working on building your LI quite a bit harder. And in my opinion, creating a new LI And in my opinion, creating a new UI for the new LI system should be one of the highest priorities, if not the highest priority, for a post-launch update. But moving on, the next big picture issue for me is the level range of traceries. As covered, traceries can be used for 2 content errors worth of levels. This means level 140 in Gundabad you can use Minas Morgul, or level 121 traceries that we'd be using at the current 130 cap. There will also be level 131 plus Gundabad traceries, but I think this creates a problem where you may want to do the outdated level 121 traceries. You may want to use those outdated level 121 traceries rather, because rarity appears to be the most important part about a tracery, particularly for class traceries. That is, the stat traceries are all a little bit different. But anyway, it seems likely that it will be easier to get a gold tracery from level 130 stuff before Gundabad than level 140 stuff in Gundabad, as it always is. Running old lower level stuff is just easier than the newer higher level stuff. So the problem this creates, I think, is players may farm old pre-Gundabad content to get gold traceries, which could very well end up being better than yellow, purple, or maybe even teal traceries from Gundabad because rarity affects the primary affix for class traceries. On top of that, I suspect they will be, again, much easier to get as well. So one of the goals of the new LI system that SSG had from their viewpoint was that players would just play the newest content, not old content to upgrade their LI, which kind of contrasts what we have now. People running level 105 raid Rakotha's, getting a whole bunch of Starlight Crystals. That's kind of the best, one of the most efficient ways at least you can upgrade your old LI. Your current imbued LIs, rather, is running level 105 content. But anyway, the level range we have with the current traceries of 2 level caps, I think, goes against this core idea. And at this point, I don't honestly know of an ideal solution to this, given the way like traceries work in the new system. But perhaps limiting the levels of traceries to something like 121 to 139 instead of 140 could work, because then at the next level cap, they are no longer able to be used. And this idea, of course, could be applied to all other level caps / content errors and the such before our current one with the upcoming Gundabad. But yeah, this issue, I think, it may seem like minor detail at first. Actually, like I said, the little details people focus on, this might seem like one of those, but I feel like it could have big implications on how and what content is run at level 140 for people to max out their LIs. Anyway, let's go ahead and set that one aside, and moving on, the last topic I want to cover, and perhaps the most important actually, is class traceries in the big picture view of them. I personally have a lot of mixed feelings on class traceries right now. On one hand, I do not like auto-include traceries, essentially ones that have no downside or no possible alternatives. Usually these type of traceries are legacies as we have them now with the old imbued LI system. They end up being necessary for class respect performance. For example, things like Runekeeper's Do Not Fall cooldown, or something like Warden's Gambit Mastery cooldown, which will be an upcoming tracery. These 2 tracers will feel very auto-include and like there's no replacement, and as far as the Runekeeper's Do Not Fall cooldown goes, that essentially doubles the effect of the res, which seems insanely powerful for a single tracery. And I think this idea can of course be expanded to other classes, but Runekeeper and Wardens are the ones I am more familiar with. So while I like the actual effect of both of these traceries, I would love to have that effect for the classes, I am not a fan of them coming from traceries. Like, I'm not a fan of them being traceries. I would much rather see these type of traceries effects either be worked into the class trait system or just worked into the class as like a simple class bonus, such as maybe a passive that boosts the skill, or just change the skill to incorporate the effect that these traceries give. So that whole idea there is, it's just one issue I'm currently feeling with traceries, and it's one that's particularly bothersome to me as we get closer to the release with this. But going back to what I said earlier, I said all that is on one hand, but what about the other hand? Finally getting to that, I do get that players like exciting effects, and some probably do like these type of traceries that I'm talking about me not liking. So what I guess I'm really getting to is, do these belong in traceries, or should they belong to the classes themselves? Whether it's like through skill and ability upgrades, through the class trait system, which has been neglected for a long while now, should it be there? So that is the question I raise in this video, and setting that thought aside, which I may expand on actually in a future video if I have time. We're getting like a week till the release, but could even do it after the release. Anyway, potentially explore that more in the future. And let's go to the other main aspect of class traceries that I'm leaning towards not liking, and that is their power level. With the LI revamp, I was hoping that would shift the focus of boosting your class powers to the class, back to class traits, into the initial balance of your skills. Many high-level traceries still provide substantially large boosts to certain skills and abilities, like plus 50% damage for a skill. That is a huge boost of damage compared to anything we can get in class traits for, at least that I am currently thinking of, many of the classes in the game and traits, if not all of them. And this is something that I have honestly been thinking about a lot the past few weeks since the first beta round, and I've kind of come to this conclusion that I would prefer across the board significantly weaker effects from class traceries instead of like 55% damage as I went over, or even more damage to a skill or skill type. I would much rather see plus 5% damage, and whatever balance is needed to overcome that type of change to a much more smaller damage increase on the tracery, I would rather see that overcome through balance applied directly to the class or in the much neglected trait trees. So I'll leave that topic there for this video, again, as something to mull over like the previous thought. If you do have any thoughts on that, please share in the comments, because I'd like to potentially expand on it in a future video. And since that was the last topic of this video, let's quickly summarize things. Overall, I do find the big picture of the new LIs to be significantly better than the big picture of the old LI system. The system is functionally simpler than old LIs, and it looks to have smoother progression across levels, especially for like the primary affixes of damage and healing. However, I think there are big picture issues with the new system that I think need to be addressed before or shortly after release. These include a ground up rework on a completely new UI, ground up new UI that is, and a change of level ranges for traceries, and perhaps a more simple naming scheme for tracery types. Additionally, I am hesitant to like the overall look of the class traceries, as they both leave something to be desired, and they feel like, the big part here is they feel like a missed opportunity for redistributing class impact back to the class. Anyway, that is it for this video, and I hope you all enjoyed it and learned something useful. And if you did, please consider liking and subscribing for more, and commenting your thoughts or becoming a channel member to support the content. And thanks for watching, everyone.